You are Locked On Texans Postcast, part of Locked On Sports Houston on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Oh my goodness. How fun, but also how stressful was the opening win for the Houston Texans as they go up to Indianapolis and make a very early statement on the 2024 season. You are not going to bully them around at all as they come out and get another opening win to kick off a season that has a lot of hype. And honestly, they matched a ton of that hype across the board today. There, of course, was some good. There was some bad throughout. But the overall result is that you get the victory like the Texans did today, and we are going to get through all of it on our very first regular season edition of the Locked On Texans Postcast today. Thank you guys for joining me. I am your host, of course, Michael Connor, here on this channel. This will be the last time, I think, based on our schedule, that you will see this show just with my face on it. Starting next week, we will be joined by former Texan Wade Smith to break down these games and hopefully another victory when the Texans take on the Bears. We'll talk about that Bears game in just a little bit before we get out of here. But today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. So let's kind of go to the big picture of today. Unbelievable. I mean, just how much the Texans came out there and really, as the game went on, out-physicaled the Indianapolis Colts. I really thought early in the football game, the Colts kind of won the battle overall in the trenches on both sides of the ball. I mean, they were getting a good pass rush on CJ. They were really physical to the Texans on the offensive side of things as well, even though their offense isn't, their offense, that Colts offense, is going to be one of those ones that just frustrates the you-know-what out of their fans because Anthony Richardson will never be consistent throwing the football. He can chuck it deep, and he can run people over. I mean, he might be the new version of Cam Newton, just based off the way that his style of play works. And that's frustrating as a fan to go up against, of course, because, I mean, you see it. The Texans have them down to, fourth down down there, 4th and goal, and it looks like you're going to be able to stop him. Smaller guys against a bigger guy, sometimes the physics don't work in your favor, and the bigger guy wins the matchup in that moment. But, I really love the fact that this team today came out there and they had multiple moments that, they kind of got kicked back after kicking the Colts in the teeth a little bit, and they immediately answered, or they went out and they had a long drive. Like, those long drives can be so demoralizing to your opponent. I'm telling you, the physical nature of today's football game, I think that was something that at times, to me, last season lacked. And I didn't have a lot of expectation of them being overly physical last year because I didn't have a lot of expectation at all for last season. But coming into this season, I have an expectation of them being a very physical football team based off of the players that they have and what they've done when they've been out there. And really, I felt like as the game moved along, they got better. The pass protection early on wasn't unbelievable. We also have to temper expectations when we go through this. And I'm sitting here today watching the game with my oldest nephew. He's 16, and he's a fantasy football. He just loves fantasy football, so he's watching football all day. But he's like freaking out about this and that and the other. And I'm like, hey, man, you got to remember, this is week 1 of the NFL season. There is nothing that is going to make you perfect in week 1. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to go out there and you're not going to be as fit, whatever it might be. It's not going to be the prettiest game at all times in week 1, especially now when we play a preseason that is shorter. The Texans played 4 preseason games this year, but they don't play the starters a lot anymore in preseason games. So it's never perfect. Like I like to just always remind myself. But man, when they needed to be perfect in certain spots, they did. There's so many guys to go through, and I'm kind of holding off here for a second because I kind of just wanted to focus on the overall win to start this show. In just a moment, I do want to talk about two of your new guys, Stefon Diggs and Joe Mixon. I mean, Joe Mixon's the player of the day today. That game is, especially that second half, that is on Joe Mixon for what he went out there and did. All those people that thought he might be washed He didn't look like a guy that's washed today. We'll talk about him in just a few minutes as he was unbelievable in his Texans debut. But that just goes back to, again, how physical this team was. And even though they gave up 27 points, they gave up the big play today. You're always going to be susceptible to giving up big plays. Doesn't matter how great your defense is. You're going to give them up sometimes. It's football. They're just going to throw them up sometimes, and it's going to fall into the right guy's hands. And then sometimes it won't. And then you'll sometimes have the quarterback, make a bunch of – look, Anthony Richardson left a bunch of throws on the field today. He missed on 2 deep balls that are probably touchdowns and not even close. He threw a terrible pick at one point in this football game. The Colts have to be extreme. They're probably looking at this as, hey, this is a football game we should have won. And the Texans are probably looking at this today as a game that they should have won by a larger margin. They kicked a lot of field goals in this football game today. That was a little bit frustrating at times. But they also had that just completely screwed up situation at the end of the first half, which the overall issue there is that the Texans' clock management to end that first half was not good. And that forced them into a spot where, they weren't ready to handle a situation that was put in front of them. The referees also completely made a mess of that thing. And I think the referee's job in that moment is to go over and explain it to both sides. You got to run through everything and go up and make sure the Texans know, hey, the clock's going to run here. You could say that, it's just thank goodness that didn't become a deciding factor in this football game today, because we'd be sitting here doing that for 30 minutes here on this show, but we're not having to do that, which is fantastic. I'm very, very happy that we don't have to do that. But overall, it was just a complete mess. But from the Texans side of it and from the referee side of it in that moment. I do have to also give the love here, because I'm going to talk a lot about the new guys next. Nico Collins earned his big paycheck that he got this offseason today. He was unbelievable. And you really see, they spread the ball out a little bit, but I think when it comes down to going out and getting your big plays, Nico's your guy, clearly. He's going to run by defenders. He's got the size. That catch on that deep ball he made was so good. It wasn't a great throw by Stroud. It was underthrown. And Stroud did not play his most unbelievable game today by any means. He made some throws at times, but he wasn't bad, but he wasn't great. I think we've all gotten to the point with C.J. Stroud where it's like it was so unexpected to be so great as a rookie that we now have him at this, he should be Patrick Mahomes right now. It's not going to be that every week. And, that this is the first game of the season. There's a lot of adrenaline to it, both sides of it. The Colts are up for it. The Colts also want to make a statement that, hey, you did win the division last year here in our building, but we want to come out, and they, this is what teams do. They took it personally, and they kind of went through the run of that leading into this one today. But Nico Collins, when they need him the most, just big play after big play. That catch there at the end of the football game, another ballsy call. There was some head-scratching moments, I thought, and we're going to talk about some of the head-scratching stuff at the very end of the show right before we preview the Bears game a little bit. But, there were 2 really ballsy calls in this football game. 4th and goal, the touchdown to Stefon Diggs there in the 4th quarter. I thought it was a great play call. The Colts weren't ready for it. Just roll CJ out there to the left. Stefon Diggs wide open. He's not going to miss that all day long. CJ's not going to miss a throw. That's the one thing CJ's going to do. Overall today, I thought he did what he typically does, which is place the ball typically where only his guys can get it. He did have a couple. The Tank Dell throw down the middle that should have been a touchdown if he probably put a little bit more air under it. And then there was another one on the sideline at one point. I can't, off the top of my head, I should have written it down which play it was, but it wasn't a horrible day overall. There's just a few of those throws, but he wasn't going to miss that throw. And then, of course, to make that play call on 3rd down, instead of going ahead and running the football and settling for a punt and making them use another timeout and relying on your defense, they make a throw. And CJ makes a great throw, and Nico somehow comes down with another great catch and gets that knee in bounds. And that is your guy. I mean, they have guys on this team. We know that. They have weapons across the board. Stefon Diggs is going to be a monster in this offense. You already see it. Like he's gonna get touchdowns. Maybe he's not the biggest yard guy anymore like he used to be. That's okay. but he's going to get open in small spots. He's going to get open in key areas, and I think the connection with C.J. Stroud's going to be very real. And it didn't even feel like you really utilized the weapon that Tank Dell is today, but you're going to have Tank Dell there to do things. You didn't get Dalton Schultz all that involved either. He's a nice safety blanket. They had some opportunity possibly. There was one missed play to Brevin Jordan as another guy, but Nico Collins is the bell cow. I'm going to think he's going to be the bell cow of this wide receiving core all season long. Man, it's nice to have some football back. It's great to have a win too. I'm telling you, it is. When you think about the ride that it has been being a Texans fan in the last few years, it's been hard. And I know it's been hard on all of you that are out there as well. It's been hard on me. I've done like a lot of you. I've gotten out there and yelled and screamed and whatever, but it was awesome, absolutely awesome to be excited today when you wake up, to have an expectation level for your football team for this season, and then to watch them go out there and play a really fun football game. Places to grow from, places to get better at. You know, D'Amico Ryans is going to get them. They're going to go over all that. They're going to be in the film room and getting ready for next Sunday because they do got some areas they got to clean up. But man, oh man, good start to the day, and the positive of it, came out healthy, right? They've come out healthy so far to this point. That is a good thing for this football team. Let's talk about the new guys. Let's talk about them specifically. Let's talk about Stefon Diggs. Let's talk about Joe Mixon. Let's really talk about Joe Mixon's fit and how wonderful it is to have a running back that I think you're going to be able to rely on all season long as the health is there for him in an offense that fits what he does perfectly. That's next year on the Locked On Texans Postcast. Right now, I need to tell you about PrizePicks, the number one daily fantasy sport in America, sports app in America with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Football season is in full go now. And guess what? In the month of September, they have something that's really cool for you. One Caleb Williams passing yard gets you one win on PrizePicks every week in September. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss this deal on PrizePicks because when September is over, it is gone. You can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNFL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. And before we talk about Joe Mixon's big arrival to the Texans, Stefon Diggs' big arrival to the Texans today, let's continue some messages here for you. I want to tell you about BetterHelp. BetterHelp is here to help you. Maybe you're in a spot where you feel like you need somebody to be there for you to go ahead and listen to you. That's good. You know, that's being right there where you feel like you are in a good spot to get that help. And that's what BetterHelp is here for. You can benefit from this every single time. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire and to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Locked On Texans Postcast. Thank you guys for swinging by. I'm your host, Michael Connor. If you're new to our channel today, please hit that subscribe button. We will be here after every single game in the Texans season. There will be one game in all likelihood that I will not participate in, but the channel will still have a show that night. And if you've missed the news so far, starting next week, he had a family event this weekend, but Wade Smith, former Texans lineman, will join us starting next weekend for these shows. So you'll get my fandom, my fan side of the perspective And Wade's actually playing in the NFL perspective. He's really good at what he does as well. Looking forward to having him on the show and you guys being able to be here with us every single week. Don't forget, later tonight, our busy weekend will come to an end. The Astros play later tonight, Sunday Night Baseball. This channel will be live after Astros and Diamondbacks. They will go for a sweep tonight. Big day in Houston. The weather's fantastic. I hope that they're going to open the roof for you guys at Minute Maid Park tonight if you're going to the baseball game. But they also will possibly be going for a sweep. So don't forget to join us live for the Locked On Astros postcast. Then we get a night off tomorrow. Nothing, because the Astros are off before we kick right back into it all week next week. And then another busy weekend next weekend with games across the board the entire weekend. By the way, if you're looking for this show on podcast, go ahead and search for Locked On Texans. You'll get this show and the Locked On Texans show. That's your daily show, by the way, the Locked On Texans show. Make sure that you are listening to that every single day. They do a great job getting you ready. They've got all the insight because they're down there covering the team and everything. So, again, check out the Locked On Texans show and this show as well. Subscribe to both YouTube pages. Also, Joe Mixon today. And what a debut. What a debut for the Texans running back. Longtime Bengals running back, of course, former running back at OU. 30 carries, 159 yards. I think they said his career high was 165. He got close today. 5.3 yards per carry, 1 touchdown as well. Also grabbed 3 passes for 19 yards in the game. Couldn't have asked for a better debut. I know that there's a lot of people, and kind of, it's the age of, it's the career. It's the career path of a typical running back. You get towards your late 20s, you start to wind down. And today, that did not look like a player that's winding down by any means. This is a guy that has had 4 1,000-yard seasons in his career. Probably would have had 6 if he didn't get hurt in 2 other years and miss games. But he's basically a 1,000-yard back every year. And there's not... I know that seems like it's not that big of a deal to some, but when you go and look at it at the end of every season, there's not a lot of 1,000-yard backs every year. And he is a wonderful fit in this offense. I was actually pleasantly surprised with how Dameon Pierce looked behind him today running the football. I think in large part because the Texans had just pounded the you-know-what out of the Colts to that point and really been so physical that it just opened up a lot of holes. Pierce only had 3 carries, by the way, 16 yards. But I just thought those 3 runs looked a lot better than I was expecting him to in those 3 runs. But I think it's all set up by Joe Mixon. Do they want him to be a 30-carry back every week? Probably not. That's okay. Today you just got to find the way to win. And today the way to win was Joe Mixon goes out there and carries the rock 30 times and really puts the team on his back in the second half. He had to have had close to 20 carries in that second half alone. I need to pull up the box from NFL.com to get the exact number, but I would assume it was close to 20 carries there for Mixon in that second half overall. He was just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. Again, everything that the Texans could have hoped for and more in this first game. And that's kind of one of the areas that they, of course, they lacked in last season was having consistency in the running game. They relied a lot upon Stroud to do it. And on days where you can't go out there and necessarily throw the ball as well, because I think we would all qualify today's football game as not their best passing game as a team. The pass rush of the Colts is very physical. Their front 7 up there on the defensive side of the football for Indianapolis is very tough, very physical, and they're probably going to be difficult on teams all season long. They made life tough on CJ. The line had its issues at times. I don't think it was completely on that they, whiffed or whatnot. They just got beat. Sometimes that happens. But there was pressure. There was absolute pressure. When those kind of games happen that you can kind of start bully balling it, and then it starts to open things up. And it allowed the Texans to make some of those key throws at the end of the football game because they went out there and just dominated with Joe Mixon just running the rock all day long. And I love that he's out there, running no gloves, elbow pads on. Awesome. And he probably got robbed of some yards today, like a lot of guys. And we didn't even mention it yet. What is up with the turf there at Lucas Oil Stadium? I mean, just awful. You can even see it. I understand, and this goes back to when you build stadiums. they all should have, and it probably costs way too much money. I get it. But like retrofitting these stadiums to where like Vegas has or like the Cardinals have, where you can literally roll the field out and then roll it back. And these guys want to play on grass for a reason. The turf sucks. It's bad for their legs. It's bad for their knees, all their joints. And then you got that today. It was like the Brazil game all over. The Brazil game was on grass, but that was on a soccer field. And the soccer fields are completely different than NFL fields. And that's part of the reason why you saw guys, falling all over the place out there. But this was just atrocious. You didn't even see the little black pebbles rolling all over the place. It almost looked like they've replaced the black pebbles inside of it with like sand or something. I don't know. I couldn't believe it. But Mixon probably lost some yards thanks to that turf today. Let's go to Stefon Diggs as well. He was great in his moments in this football game. I mean, they didn't target him a ton. Actually, 6 targets, 6 catches, only 33 yards though, and the 2 touchdowns. First touchdown was fantastic. He's never going to miss on those quick slants. CJ's not going to miss the throw, and Stefon Diggs is not going to miss on the route. He's going to be about as precise as it's going to get. I like that they lined him up kind of all over the place, inside, outside. I think you can use him in both areas of this football team and really get a lot out of him there. And, having another reliable set of hands down there in the red zone, because Nico's really good at getting up, getting the ball. Tank Dell's such a small guy that we're always going to be worried about utilizing him in the red zone. Diggs is about it down there. And I think that's going to be a big, big part, a big, big benefit of having him is having him for red zone stuff. Great debut. Absolutely great debut. And, I know it's earlier in the honeymoon phase too, but, everything you're hearing about him coming out of there is wonderful. I thought he was a crazy person in Buffalo too. You saw some of the stuff, but then you watch Buffalo, you kind of hear how Josh Allen talks at times. I can get where they probably rub you a little bit wrong. I just think he came to a team that they're going to be together, and he might not be here forever. Maybe that's best for both sides. That it's a brief stint. It's a brief stint, whatever it might be. But he's bringing a lot in terms of experience and playmaking ability for CJ Stroud, and a nice safety blanket as well to getting things done. And it was a great debut for him as well with 2 touchdowns on the day, even if he did not have a lot of yards. I did want to talk about some of the head-scratching stuff. Not a lot of it, but I just wanted to get it off my chest a little bit. And let's go ahead and take a look at next weekend's game as well against the Bears before we get out of here. That's next here on the Locked On Texans Postcast. Maybe you're looking to get out to the big game, wherever it might be. Maybe it's a baseball game. Maybe it's a football game like next weekend in our city that plays at night on a Sunday. Well, you can do that by downloading the Game Time app right now. Maybe you like to play the game that I like to play, which is sit around and wait for tickets. Well, let me tell you this. You're going to do that, hit the Game Time app. I'm telling you right now, absolutely get it. It's not just games as well. They got all the big events, concerts, comedies, whatever it might be. Game Day has you covered. Game Time has you covered, for Game Day. Right now, you can go over to that app and download it and then look at it and get toggle the feature for the all-in pricing. This shows you everything up front to where you get to check out and there's not a bunch of surprise fees to it all. It's a very cool feature. Another great feature of it is your seat view. Who wants to buy a ticket and not know what the seat view looks like? I don't. Well, right now in that app, you can go and download the seat view and get a panoramic view of your seat in that app before you buy it. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKED on NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Locked On Texans Postcast for a few more minutes. Thank you guys for joining me this afternoon. I'll let you get back to your Sunday afternoon of football here in a couple of seconds. Don't forget again tonight on this channel to join me later on for the Locked On Astros Postcast. Astros and Diamondbacks, final game of the 3-game series. Stros looking for the sweep. It's going to be a sweep Sunday here in Houston because we're going to get all the wins today. Real quick look at the AFC South this afternoon. Texans off to a roaring start in the division, baby. Roaring start. Absolutely fantastic start in the division. Well, I was trying to do it, but for some reason, I keep getting these pop-ups telling me that I've won money from AT&T. No, I haven't won money from AT&T. I don't want your pop-up. The Jacksonville Jaguars lost to the Miami Dolphins 20-17. The Tennessee Titans had Will Levis cough it up late. They were going to walk away with an easy win over the Bears today. They lost 24-17. So there's only one undefeated team left in the AFC South after 1 week of football, and that is your Houston Texans. You love to see it. You absolutely love to see it. The head-scratching stuff I wanted to talk about, it really, number one, we talked about it a little bit, was the situation at the end of the first half. I'm not going to dive back into that. We've gone over all that. I think really more than anything, it was just some of the play calling at times. And big picture, it ended up making a lot of sense that they went the way that they did. I just felt at times early in the football game, they were a little conservative. I'm a little bit of a risk taker when it comes to how you operate, at least how I would operate if I was out there running the football team. But, I can't complain too much about that overall. Again, they got the win, and maybe next weekend the matchup will dictate taking a few more shots at times. Maybe they won't need to rely on the run the entire time. We'll see. The Titans, by the way, today, as we'll kind of transition real quickly into our Bears game preview. Sunday Night Football next weekend, by the way, 7:20 kickoff at NRG. So we'll be live with Wade Smith, former Texan, after 10 o'clock next Sunday night. So it'll be a little bit of a late one, but I hope you guys will join us for that. Tennessee today ran for 140 yards on the Bears. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Joe Mixon will probably have a day today. What that Bears team looks like is a mystery. I can tell you this. Caleb Williams was not very good today. He threw for 93 yards. They somehow got a win. Look, I think you put pressure on him and you shut down their running game like the Titans did today, the Texans should walk to it. You can't. It's the NFL. I get it. You can't say that necessarily that they're just going to cruise to every single victory. But that kind of matchup there screams you go out there and you get another win and get to 2-0 on this season. You can't take it lightly, of course, because if you do that, the second that you do that, this team is going to slip up and lose a football game in that spot. But what a fun day. What a fun start to our Sunday. Thank you for stopping by, watching the show this afternoon. Appreciate you guys. Don't forget to join me later tonight for the Locked On Astros postcast after their final game against the Diamondbacks. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday afternoon. We'll talk tonight right here on the Locked On Sports Houston page.